Custom Creations is today's theme on Beads, Baubles, and Jewels.
Beads, Baubles and Jewels has been brought to you in part by Beading Daily, your jewelry making resource for how-to projects, books, magazines, DVDs, events, and online learning. BeadingDaily.com. Beadalon, a manufacturer of flexible bead stringing wires, memory wire, artistic wire, stringing materials, innovative findings, and tools to help you fashion your own jewelry. Beadalon.com. Dreamtime Creations, an online supplier of crystals, findings, and jewelry making supplies since 1989. DreamtimeCreations.com. Halcraft, jewelry component manufacturer. Halcraft.com.
Hi, I'm your host, Katie Hacker. Store-bought materials can save time, but sometimes you gotta make it from scratch to get just what you want. All of today's designers subscribe to the idea of personalizing as much as possible, beginning with Jean Campbell, our Stitch Pro. Today, she's showing several tips and techniques for keeping right angle weave clean, neat, and strong with the beads sitting at perfect angles. Then, it's Cindy Holt in a segment we filmed earlier on how to make your very own cabochon. Next, on today's workshop, we make illusion necklaces. Finally, peruse some beautiful lampwork custom-made beads from various artists with Carrie Bogert to give your pieces that custom look. Jean is up first. I'm here with Beadwork Magazine Stitch Pro, Jean Campbell. Welcome, Jean.
Hey, thanks for having me back again.
Oh, it's so great. And you have some great tips for us on right angle weave.
Right angle weave is often the bane of stitchers' existence. But it is such a great stitch. It's just so, but what you need to do is really know how to make it clean and tight.
Okay.
So I want to give you a few tips.
Great.
And I want to show you good and bad.
Do and don't do.
Do's and don't do's.
Okay.
Yeah. So this project right here, I use right angle weave as the base, and it's a great thing, a great stitch to use as a base because there's all these sticky outy beads that you can embellish. I didn't make it tight here. But this second one that I'm working on, I did concentrate on the tightness. You might not be able to see the difference, but this bracelet, when I finish it, is gonna look so much cleaner and nicer because I took the time to tighten the right angle weave. It's easier to see the difference on this little square right here. Bad right angle weave, good right angle weave.
You're right, it's really easy to see.
It makes a big difference.
And it's just in the tension?
Well, there's lots of tricks that you can, it is tension, but it's also...
So this is the bad one, sorry to interrupt.
Bad one, right.
Good one.
Good one, yeah. You'll see in this one, the beads are jumbled all over the place. In this one, the beads are set at right angles.
And you can really see the rows, too.
You can see the rows, you see the kind of cross pattern that these beads make. You can see each unit has a hole in the middle of it. And so you see how the sides, those beads are sticking out
So that's
really
where
clearly.
It creates a good place for embellishing.
Right, and you can embellish really easy in the center of these units too.
Oh, yeah.
On this other one, I can't see what's sticking out or anything. So I want to show you a couple ways to do this. Right angle weave is a really easy stitch when you're doing just the first row. And I'm going to do one stitch for you and show you what I'm doing while I'm doing it. I'm using these size 6 Baroque beads, which are beautiful, but they have big holes. And so I'm using a doubled thread that's well waxed so that the wax makes a nice grab inside and the thread fills up the holes. So I'm going to pick up 3 beads to make this next unit. In right angle weave, I just pass through the last bead that I exited. And if you see, I'm holding this part really tight. And I'm pulling
this.
And they
pop right into place.
They pop into place. But now if I just went along, this might get loose or whatever. So I'm gonna pass through this again. So there's actually 4 threads going through.
So that would be something you have to keep in mind, especially when you're doing this with smaller beads like delicas. You'd have to choose a really thin thread.
You just want to make sure, you want to keep the tension, and you want to fill the bead holes with thread.
Okay.
The other thing that is a good tip in right angle weave is when you are passing through the beads, pass through them one at a time.
Rather than trying to pass your needle all the way around.
If you pass through, bad thing about double thread is sometimes it catches. If you pass through like this, see what happens? They kind of skew. But if I pass through one at a time and pull tight, it really kind of straightens up.
You're really creating a fabric of beads.
That's what right angle weave is.
Yeah.
So it's about taking your time, going through one bead at a time, and then choosing what width of thread and filling up those holes. If you're a beginner at right angle weave, I don't recommend starting with a doubled thread because
it's easier with a single ply.
It's easier to pull your mistakes out. If you have a single thread rather than a double thread.
Okay.
We don't want frustrated beaders.
No, we want to be successful the first time.
That's right, that's right. Another tip, and this was from one of my students, and I just loved it. When you're doing a second row, multiple rows of right angle weave, there's a couple things that you can do to keep those rows nice and tight. One is, and you'll see it here, to add beads between the beads that are sticking out, and then put a head pin or something through that first row.
So it maintains the tension for you while you work?
Right, it'll maintain the tension throughout the whole thing. And then you can go ahead and do that in every row, just with the head pin. You don't have to add beads between.
And when you're finished, then you would just remove this head pin and the extra beads would just fall away.
Right.
So they're just space holders, basically.
It's just space holders. I bent this, so I can't do it for you right now, but basically that's exactly it. So when I do those rows, I make sure they're nice and tight. I'll know that there's 4 units here that I have to work on.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, you want to have a nice, tight right angle weave so you can do other beautiful projects.
Oh, like these bezels. These are gorgeous. So the right angle weave is right along the edge there.
Yeah, and because the right angle weave is so tight, we can
build off of it.
it.
So I can see why it would be important, especially when you're making things like these bezels and also the strap on your necklace. Thanks, Jean. I'm here with Cindy Holt, polymer clay artist, and she's going to show us how to make cabochons. And this is wonderful. You can bead around it or put it in a bezel. Use it for anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what do we do to get started? We're using polymer clay.
Right, and the first way is to use the cabochon molds that are available now, and these are great. They're really flexible, very easy to use, and I have to tell you, they are addicting. Oh my goodness.
I can tell.
Yeah, you don't have to, but I like to wipe it with just a little bit of a damp sponge, and then I take my ball of clay, and I always pinch some off because I always have too much clay.
Just always, you know.
Always, I know myself, I always do. Just press it into the mold. Wipe the edges back as you work so that you have nice clean edges on there, and then just pop it out.
All right, so you make just the basic shape, and you could use it just like that.
You can use it like that. You can add adornment to it. What I'm going to do is show you how to make a quick little Skinner blend here to put on the top to make this beautiful agate type look.
Yes.
So this is just 3 pieces of clay stacked together. And my trick is I add a metallic thin sheet to the back. That adds a glisten to the colors, kind of tones them down a little bit, and it holds them together when I run it through the pasta machine.
Now, does it matter how thick those pieces are?
These are #1 layers here, and you can see that the gold layer is a thinner layer. It's about a number 3, number 4. It just depends on how much metallic you want in there.
Okay.
I'm going to run this through the pasta machine with the narrow side down on the widest setting. And you run it through, you fold top to bottom, and you keep running it through until you get this nice even blend like this.
Do you keep folding it top to bottom to keep those stripes?
Always. You don't want to take your stripes and go this way. You're going to blend your colors. You want to keep it going this way.
I see.
Yeah. So once you have your blend and you like the way that the colors are going, you set your machine to a thinner setting. Oh, I'm going to go about right there. Whoa, almost went the wrong way. Roll again from the narrow to the top.
Oh, and there you can see it pick up the blend.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then you can select the part of the blend that you want to use on this if you want a nice even blend in there. But let me show you, you can also take it this time and go through with the colors going this way. And you're going to get all 3 of your colors in a short blend.
So either way.
Either way. Whatever way you want to use it with. I'm going to cut a short piece of this off so I'm not putting a whole bunch into the mold. And I'm going to put this, I'm going to wipe it first. I forget this part. I get so excited to see what it's going to look like that I forget. Yeah. I'm going to lay that right on the mold and push this pre-made one that we have on there.
Okay, and you don't have to bake the pre-made one first.
No, no. And I'm just going to take these and kind of trim it just a little bit. There we go.
Great.
And wrap these back around it.
And then do you push them a little bit more in the mold?
I push it into the mold to get any bubbles, any air bubbles that I have out of it. And then I can just lightly trim it off. Pop it out. Woo-ha!
So pretty.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
It comes out just fabulously. And you can even use your scrap. I have my scrap sitting here because I push that in and you get these fantastic patterns.
I love the way that looks too.
And you go, oh yeah, I meant to do that.
Right.
Now, if you don't have a mold like this, there's other ways that you can do an interesting looking cabochon. I'm going to pull this over here. I have 2 number 1 layers of clay, and this is another number 1 layer. I kind of like to pattern my clay a little bit for this, so I'm going to take my favorite stamp that's always on my table, and I'm just going to kind of push the clay on here.
Make some texture.
Make a little bit of texture on it. Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Looks good.
Mm-hmm. I put this on top, and I'm going to take a cutter. I'm going to use an oval teardrop cutter for this. And you put a piece of this is just computer paper on top.
And what's the paper for?
The paper adds a resistance that will round the edges. If I cut this just on its own, you would get those nice,
Flat
clean,
sides,
sharp edges.
yes.
And I've learned to take something that's big and flat and push on top.
Instead of your hand.
Yeah. So when you push through and you take it off,
Oh, look at that.
you get this beautiful rounded shape on there.
Gorgeous.
Very similar to working with a cabochon.
Right.
And then you can use any shape cutter to do that. But
That
that's
looks
not
great.
the only way that you can do this. But wait,
There-
there's more. You can also, I like to use spoons sometimes. This is really effective if you want to make one focal bead. It's a little difficult to make several that match this way.
A little more organic.
Yeah, it's a little more organic. And again, you want to just spray it with water just a little bit. And this is a spoon that lives on my clay table. It does not live in my kitchen.
So make sure it's just for clay.
Right. You notice that I sprayed a little bit of water on it, and I'm just going to push the clay in here.
All right, or you could make it into an oval shape even.
That's right. I could take my fingers and pull it out just a little bit. You're right.
Or maybe you have a set of spoons and you have different sizes and shapes. I see where you're going with this.
I kind of like my plastic spoons, what they do too. And you can see that that gives me a nice rounded shape there that I can work with my fingers and make a great little cabochon.
These are some great ideas. Let's take a look at your finished ones too.
A lot of these are scrap clay again. I love using the scrap clay and then a glaze over it.
Looks so pretty.
This is the blend again that we did.
All right.
Here's one that's been made with the cutter, and I added just some cane pieces to it that I had. These have just some of the metallic powders just dotted on with my finger, and I like to add a little shot of the glitters to that too. I just think it just adds a punch to the, to the metallic.
Oh, it really does, and it looks like you have the stone too, that granite look.
Yes, the granite. This is using a granite type of clay, and I added glitter in there to see what would happen with it.
That looks great too.
And this is one that my son made out of scrap that we were so proud of.
And this looks like a metal veil, but did you do that part after it was already baked? baked?
I did. After I baked it, I started with an oval of clay, and then I used like the back of a bamboo skewer to punch and make the texture in it. And then I just laid it over the cabochon and just kind of pressed it on. And this is just a thin strip that's wrapped in a coil. This similar to what I did here. This is extruded or rolled and added on there too.
Oh, there are so many different ways you can finish these.
Oh, it's endless. And
Yes.
Imagine a beater like you, what you could do with a fabulous
I'm ready
one like
to get
that.
creative with these. Thank you so much, Cindy.
You're welcome.
We will be right back. This jewelry making workshop is how to make your own illusion necklaces. You take a look at this beautiful, brightly colored necklace here. This is a great technique for showing off your favorite beads. So I chose a color palette of purples and oranges and reds and just really makes them pop and stand out in a way that they might not be the same if you strung them all together. By creating a little bit of space there, you get that illusion feeling, and it also highlights your beads. So let me show you how to get started. I'm using 49 strand beading wire because it's the most flexible. So it's going to stand up to the little bit of wear and tear that you'll have since it's more exposed. You're using a crimping tool, and I'm just going to squeeze the inner jaws with the tool and then round it on the outside of the tool like that. And that makes it a little bit less obtrusive in a design. Now you can also cover it with a crimp cover. And a good little tip for using crimp covers is, let's say you don't happen to have any silver crimp beads, but you have silver crimp covers. That's okay, because you can just cover up your gold or copper crimp bead with a silver crimp cover. So you see I'm using the larger size of crimping tool and just the outer jaws to squeeze that closed to hide it. And it also gives it a really pretty finished look when you're done. So then you would string your next bead. And I like to go ahead and crimp cover before I do the bead, because then it allows you to figure out your spacing. And you can make your bead unit a little bit closer together. So then you string your next crimp bead. Same thing, you'll hold this between your thumb and forefinger, use your crimping tool in the inner jaws and then the outer jaws, and make it a little bit smaller, see there? Then you're going to use your crimp cover again and use your mighty crimping tool to close it. And I squeeze it sideways. You can also come from the long side of the bead and squeeze it together. You just want to be careful that you don't squeeze this too hard, because it can mush that a little bit. So make sure that it stays nice and round. Now, a tip for keeping that spacing even is you can use a beading board, of course, to measure, or you can cut a piece of rubber tubing, or you can even use a drinking straw. And this is going to ensure that you have even spacing between your beaded units. So when you're ready to crimp, you can just slide that over the wire, and I'll push it right down to the crimp cover. And then I will go ahead and crimp my next section. And once it's crimped, you can remove the straw, of course, so then your wire will be exposed again. Okay, so that's a great way to keep that spacing even between your beaded sections. And if you take a look at this dragonfly necklace, what I did here to highlight these beautiful glass beads is to create the beaded units evenly spaced on each side, and then attaching them to a pendant at the center. And it has a larger crimp cover here at the middle, and then some smaller spacer beads that kind of reinforce that look throughout the design. And of course, on the purple and red and orange one, this one has a lot of different stone beads, and I didn't really plan out the design, but they kind of have a delightful tangle effect when they're done. And then on the black necklace, what I did with that one is use that illusion design, of course, to create the foundation of the necklace, but I also used it at the tassel. So you're using the same technique to space the beads apart on the wire, and it just gives you kind of a more delicate effect. And especially on the earrings, you'll see that those have a very ethereal look, and it's the same idea. The reason you would want to do something like this is when you don't have head pins that are quite long enough for the earrings that you want to make, you can just use beading wire. So that's our jewelry making workshop for today. So you're probably familiar with this style of lampwork bead, but there are so many different types of lampwork beads, and I'm here with Carrie Bogert. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Carrie's a lampwork artist, and she's going to show us some different tools that you use and different styles of beads as well.
Yeah.
Great.
Lampworking is definitely one of my most favorite subjects, so I could go on and on.
All right.
the beads, all the beads you see here are made with rods of glass. You can see they're kind of like a colored pencil, or about the size of a colored pencil. There's lots of different types of glass. There's American glass, Italian glass, German glass, Chinese glass.
You even have some twisted.
Yeah, so what you can actually do is take 2 rods or more than 2 rods and twist them together to kind of make unique canes or marinis. This one is actually, if you cut chips of this one, it would make a little star.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's neat. And then these larger rods get pulled into these tiny little strings, which actually make all the details that are on the surface of the beads.
And this takes some practice.
It does. It's definitely a medium that you've got to really work at it.
Yeah, well, it has beautiful results. And tell us a little bit about the things that you have here.
Yeah, some of the tools that you'd typically find in a lampworking studio are graphite paddles and marvers. They help shape and form the beads. You might have some paddles for pinching and shaping again. This one you can like flatten dots or make sure your work is sunk into the surface properly. Every studio has lots of mandrels, and the size of your mandrel will change the size of the hole in your beads. So a big mandrel like this one will make some of the really large hole beads, and then the smaller ones make the ones you might use in a wire-wrapped bracelet.
Yeah, now all of these beads that we're talking about are made in front of a torch.
They are. Usually it's a small tabletop torch, dual fuel using oxygen and propane, not acetylene because that's too hot.
Okay.
It'll actually boil the glass.
Yeah, and let's take a look at these ivory color ones because
Aren't
it's hard to tell that these are even glass.
Yeah, they're actually made with ivory glass that has been fumed with fine silver. So the fine silver is put in the flame and it kind of burns off onto the surface of the ivory glass, and it's reactive, and you get these neat effects to the surface. And then this artist actually etched the beads.
Wow, beautiful.
And then as a big contrast to the size of these ones are these teeny tiny little baby beads right here. And they've actually been rolled in raku glass, which is kind of like raku in pottery in that the colors kind of bloom and burst and change. So moving down, this is a really unique bead that has moving parts. That's kind of fun. What you do to get something like this is you're actually making a bunch of rings in advance on a really large mandrel, and then they go, once they're cleaned, after their first kiln cycle, they're heated back up and put onto a fun-shaped base bead.
Wow.
And these green ones here, actually, those twisties of the 2 colors together has been melted into the surface here.
Oh, that's a great
neat
technique.
And then on these large hole rings here, they've got fine silver again, only this time it hasn't been melted in, and it's got sparkly little bubbles of silver on the surface.
So pretty, and so many of these do look kind of like ceramics.
They do sometimes. I know there's a couple ceramic artists that I've seen that I think their work is lamp work.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then there's lamp work that looks like it's ceramics. So moving down, this is the one set that actually has a different type of glass in it. This is borosilica. It's considered a hard glass, where the other glass here is considered soft glass. And don't worry when you hear the word soft glass. All these beads and any usually purchased from a lampwork artist are going to be kiln annealed, which makes them very strong and durable. They don't like to be dropped on ceramic floors or concrete. They might break on you. But as long as you're gentle with them, they will last for a very long time.
Oh yeah, and they're all miniature works of art in
They
themselves. And is the boro difficult to work with
You
compared
need
to
a
the
hotter,
softer?
Yeah, you need a hotter torch for boro work. It melts at a much higher temperature than the soft glass.
Okay, and we should mention too that these beads are made by a lot of different artists. Can you point out some of the ones that you made yourself?
Sure. Actually, these fun head pins right here are some of mine, rolled in that same raku that these beads are. So it's kind of neat to see the same things used in different ways. Moving down here, these hollows are some of mine, as well as these cabochons.
Great.
And then hopping over here, this encased spiral is one of mine, and I also like making buttons.
Oh yeah, buttons are a great accent piece, or you can use them for a focal or create a clasp.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about these too.
Oh, these bright color worked ones. This was an actual trade that I did with another artist. She had created these as test color beads. So she wanted to see how the colors were laying, and so she made up a whole bunch of them, and I said they were gorgeous, and did she want to trade? So it's fun being a glass artist and knowing so many other glass artists that we get to trade and swap.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we'll have all of, let's talk about one more, but we'll have pictures of some of these on our website
we'll have,
too.
and links to the artists if anyone wants to find out more about them.
Pick one more we have time for.
Oh, it's so hard to pick. They're all my favorite. I think these are really interesting, the enamel beads here. This artist actually sifts enamel. I know a lot of people are using torch-fired enamel. This is torch firing when it's mixed with glass, and you can do some really beautiful things.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This is fascinating. And don't forget to visit our website for more jewelry making workshops and lessons. Hope to see you next time as we explore designs with a twist.
Instructions for today's projects, plus other ideas, techniques, and tutorials are available on the web at beadsbaublesandjewels.com. This is show 1809. If you enjoyed today's show and want to see more projects and great guests, download individual episodes for $2.99 each or order a complete DVD set of the entire Beads, Baubles and Jewels Series 1800 for $29.95 plus shipping and handling at beadsbaublesandjewels.com. Don't miss a single episode. Beads, Baubles and Jewels has been brought to you in part by Beading Daily, your jewelry making resource for how-to projects, books, magazines, DVDs, events, and online learning. BeadingDaily.com. Beadalon, a manufacturer of flexible bead stringing wires, memory wire, artistic wire, stringing materials, innovative findings, and tools to help you fashion your own jewelry. Beadalon.com. Dreamtime Creations, an online supplier of crystals, findings, and jewelry making supplies since 1989. Dreamtimecreations.com. Halcraft, jewelry component manufacturer. Halcraft.com.